Welcome to a brand new survival challenge, where we've ratcheted up the difficulty to what might nearly be an impossible challenge, or at least extremely difficult. So as we fall on our drop pod to the surface of Pertam, we'll brace for impact, hope for a good landing site, and I'll tell you about the rules for this new challenge. I've selected Pertam as our starting location, and it is one of the more challenging start locations for several reasons, which I'll talk about. But let me first talk about the restrictions and additional hardships we've imposed. This is a no jetpack challenge, so everywhere we go we'll have to be on foot or by rover. Any vehicle or ship we build will need proper scaffolding to access everything. We'll have to make sure we have good access in and out of any vehicle. If we're on the planet in an aerial ship battle and our cockpit gets too damaged, we'll not only be ejected from the cockpit, but we'll plummet to the ground to our death. In space, we'll have to make sure we have gravity generation on our ships, and of course, any kind of EVA will be impossible. We'll have to do everything, even ship repairs, with another ship or in a hangar or something. But that is just the start, and maybe the least of the challenges. We've also had a very bad landing, and our ship is upside down. Not at all what I wanted. My plan was to turn this drop pod into a basic rover, because it has the only source of energy and survival kit for healing. So we'll have to start by getting it flipped over. To get some initial components to do the flipping and other things, I'm gonna go harvest the downed satellites. I hate the rolling ones. They're such a pain. There's a couple other reasons for going after these satellites that are important to our survival, and I'll talk about those in a little bit. But as you can see, I'm also losing oxygen. It's another difficulty of this planet where the oxygen is low and the atmosphere is very thin. Here, on the side of this plateau, there's not enough oxygen. In fact, only at the very lowest ravines and pocketed dips do they have enough oxygen for sustainability. In my drop pod, I have 300 ice I can turn into oxygen, but that won't last very long and leads to another part of the challenge. Pertam has almost no ice. There's no surface ice in ice lakes, and any underground ice is considered rare. There's probably only a handful of underground deposits on the whole planet, so we'll definitely have to do a bit of exploring to find the ice. We got this thing righted. The next step is to put a lift system on the rover to jack it up and get some wheels on it. To further fund this with parts, I'm going after more dropped satellites, getting some money out of them, which will become important to us later, and only supplementing with some hand-drilled rock converted to basic ingots by the survival kit. But back to the ice. We're going to need hydrogen to leave the planet. And this planet has 120% gravity of the Earth-like planet. So anything we build will need that extra bit of lift. The thin atmosphere also makes atmospheric thrusters struggle pretty hard. So most of what we'll do here will be in rovers. And I'm really looking forward to that. I think the rover builds and gameplay is really good here in Space Engineers. And I think I'll use the forced opportunity to make some really creative builds, do things a little bit different than I have in the past. Now, between the ice and going to fetch the occasional satellite, it brings up another part of the challenge. I've installed the Assertive Combat Systems mod. And this mod spawns ground bases and attack drone ships in your vicinity the more you move around. The more you move, the more that spawn. Now, they'll shoot at you once you get near them, but if you leave them alone, they'll leave you alone. All our moving around for satellites and later exploring for ice will draw a lot of attention, and it might lead us to getting surrounded by these hostile outposts. Unfortunately, though, we won't be able to avoid them because we implemented a no refineries restriction. That's right, no refining. So this means no cobalt for metal grids, no hydrogen or atmospheric thrusters, no magnesium for weapons, very restrictive. You can still mine, you just can't do anything yourself with the ores. The only bit of very minor refining we can do is with the survival kit that comes with the drop pod. We can use assemblers to get small and large tubes and some other things, which is why I've started building this larger grid wind turbine here, to power the assembler. But if we want metal grids and other components, and we have to have those things to leave the planet, we'll have to engage with the Assert faction and essentially declare war, starting with not much more than our bare hands. There is the possibility, though, of trade at the trade stations, so I'm hoping for a good nearby trade station here on the planet. What might be ideal is to have a trade station here on Pertam I can drive to and sell these basic iron, nickel, and silicon ingots for some of the more advanced ones, which is the other reason I'm happy to gather up some of this free money from the satellites. It may be just the ticket out of here eventually. If you start a game and have the economy turned on, and we do, you'll get one GPS coordinate for the closest trade station to your location in the cockpit seat of your drop pod. I haven't looked at mine yet, but we've finally collected satellite parts, made some tubes with the assembler, and have our little drop pod up off the ground for the addition of wheels. I've added a second medium storage container, and I think I'm going to try for a design I've never done before. I think I'm going to go for a kind of trike design with the two wheels in the front for stability, and space those two front wheels nice and wide. We need to get ourselves and this rover off the side of this hill and into the valleys as soon as possible. Every minute we're up here, we're using up our ice for oxygen, and it may take a little while to find more, so the clock is ticking on even this very first part of the challenge. The temporary solar-powered wing has to go, but we can add a couple panels to the top for our exploration. They won't provide a lot of power, but they'll do something, and it might be days before we find any ice. I've also been out collecting more satellites for parts and money, and I've had to do more drilling, mainly for silicon for the solar panels. But the scrapped steel plates are exactly what I need for armoring the underside of this rover. What might not be clear to people, and with the rules we have in place, is exactly how precarious our survival situation is right now. Without a refinery to refine cobalt and get thrusters and weapons, we also can't refine silver for medical components to make a second survival kit or med bay, which means if we lose this rover and the survival kit, our run is probably over, as it becomes a permadeath situation given the settings we chose. We might have a chance, but a very slim one at best. I think one of the last things we need is a proper cockpit block. What I also noticed, after having run around a while for satellites, is that we were very lucky, in a way, with our landing. Just a few feet further down this hill, it drops off into a straight cliff. So even though we took a bit of a tumble on the landing and went upside down, if we'd gone much farther, it could have been much worse. Okay, time to lower this thing down and give it the old college try. All right, she's on the ground. I think we will add, though, some sort of lift system to the rover. If we break something, it'll be much easier to add it now than if the rover is sitting with its belly on the ground. All right, the time has come. You can see how steep this hill really is now. I'll just make a few suspension and wheel adjustments. We don't need it to go fast, just safely. I also might as well disassemble our temporary power and assembler setup. We don't need that anymore, but we might need the parts again soon. Okay, the first nervous, tricky part. How well will it go down a steep hill, or will it just flip over? Very nice. And it even had enough grip and stability to go back up. That was good. A few little maneuvers. It seems pretty good. Our battery is almost 25% drained. So let me turn off all the things using power we don't need right now. And finally, what might be the most critical step of our survival challenge, we're going to open up the data pad and get the coordinates of our nearest economy station. Oh great, it's in space, probably in orbit around the planet. Another blow to our challenge. Well, I guess, as we also get engulfed in a sandstorm, we'll contemplate our next move. But we're alive, and we have a working rover, and that's not bad. Tune in to the next episode to see if we live or die, and I'll see you next time.